Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Unconventional Attorney Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Small, and I am the Unconventional Attorney. What is up, everybody? Hopefully having a great day, week, month, everything. It is Columbus Day. I'm supposed to not be working, but I can't help myself. So I thought I'd come in here and talk to you about something that I think we all go through, and something we're all wonder how everybody else does these things. That's office space. I'm going to tell you my history. Go back old school. But before I get there, I want to remind you, if you're not subscribed to the world's greatest newsletter ever, you're missing out. And it goes out every Sunday. It's really good. I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I sort of talk about what I've been working on the week, thoughts I've been thinking about, things I've been going through, and I'd love to be able to share that with you. If you are interested in getting that, go to unconventionalnewsletter.com. We got a new URL, unconventionalnewsletter.com. Check that out. Okay, comes out every Sunday. I'm not going to be selling you anything. Every once in a while, I remind you that the sanctuary exists, and see if you want to come and join us. But that's about it. So go check it out, unconventionalnewsletter.com. All right. So, I was thinking about podcasts, and I've been kind of going a little woo-woo lately, which is for a good reason. The reason is that's where the money's made. Okay, your mindset, the way that you operate, the way that you think, the action that you take or don't take, these all define your success in the macro and in the micro. Being able to come to the office today and do a podcast just like this is something that a lot of you can't find the time or the will or the strength or the courage or whatever you want to call it to do. You need to figure that out. But can't talk about woo-woo stuff all the time, because I know you guys like to hear some nuts and bolts stuff. You like to hear some actual practical, practice-oriented type of stuff. And so today I thought I'd sort of just go way old school and talk about something that is a reality in my life right now, and something that hopefully you can think about and learn about and work on in your own practice, and that is office space. And I thought the coolest thing, or the easiest way to do this would just be to sort of give you my entire office space experience, because I have had some ideas and made some assumptions about office space and the way that things function, and then gotten into them and figured out that those assumptions did not prove to be true for me. And that's the first thing I guess that I'll say is, the style, the way that you work, the way that you operate, the number of people that you have, and the way that your office functions are kind of all, I think, going to dictate how you approach this situation. But I think the important thing is not to lie to yourself, or to get a little woo-woo for a moment, even when it comes to office space, to understand and recognize that your environment really can dictate your success or your failure. And if you are not getting things done, one of the first places that I would look is to your environment. Okay, and that's there's a great transition into sort of phase one of my office space journey. And I'll tell you, so to recap, I don't know if many of you have heard this story before or not, but in 2008, I was working for the Kansas Department of Transportation. I was living in Lawrence, Kansas, and KDOT is what it's called. It's in Topeka. I was driving to Topeka every day, 25 minutes, no big deal, because it's just a nice flat highway, open road. It was easy. I was carpooling, doing some other fun stuff, whatever. And my wife, Allison, she got a job in Seattle at the University of Washington. And we'd made a deal that wherever she got this next job, I would get to open my own law firm. And so in November of 2008, I moved out to Seattle with her, and scheduled myself to take the bar exam in February of 2009. And so from November 2008 to February 2009, I didn't really have a job. I didn't have a license. There wasn't a whole lot that I could do. I did try to do some consulting for some eminent domain work, which is its own separate story. But essentially from November to February, I was building and sort of prepping and getting ready for my law firm opening. I was creating content. I was building websites. I was doing all these kinds of things. And I was working at home. And I quickly realized that home is not a great place for me to work for many, many different reasons. Reason number one is is I got kind of bored and or lonely. Not transitioning from any place to any place at all was really kind of crazy for me and hard. And so I really liked the idea of going someplace, putting my work hat on, getting to work, and then doing the thing, coming back home. I still work at home right now, and I still worked at home then, but the things that I was doing then were just sort of like the side projects, the things that needed to get done that didn't get finished up. It wasn't like my main place. And so I figured that out pretty quickly. And so when I figured that out, I started looking for office space. It was just me. I had no paralegal, no assistant, no staff, no nothing. It's just me. And I thought the probably the easiest way to approach that would be to try to rent an office from anyone. And so I started looking. I went, to give you an idea, I think I went to Craigslist. I went to the King County is where Seattle is. I went to like the King County Bar Association classified area because they have office space listings there. I went to, I think that's probably it. Anyway, I found a couple of spots. I went and looked at them, obviously, and I found a nice little office that was being rented out by a law firm, doing what I was doing, which was great. I would tell you, for me, I didn't approach my office search in hopes of landing in a place that could send me business. Although that did sort of happen a little bit, it wasn't my intent. It wasn't any on my criteria at all. I wanted a cool place that I could afford, that was fun and interesting, that I wanted was comfortable at. The worst thing I think that you can do, whether it's your first office or your current office, is to get a space where you don't feel comfortable, where you don't feel proud. All right, it doesn't have to be the fanciest office in the world, but if it's a piece of shit, you're going to feel like a piece of shit. The clients coming in are going to treat you like a piece of shit, and it's just not a good situation. So it doesn't have to be the best office in the world, but it needs to be a place that you feel proud to call your office. And I think that applies to the exterior of the building and the interior of the building as well. What's great is you can change the interior of the building to fit your needs in very easy ways, which we'll talk about here probably later as I talk to you about my new office experience. But I rented the space. It was great. I will tell you, if you are just starting out, if you are a new attorney in particular, if you are a new law firm owner, one of the things that I might look for, if I going back and I got lucky, is if you can find a business where it seems like they have their shit together, where they're organized and people are happy. And I would highly suggest that you consider staying in that place. And when you go there, though, what you're going to want to do is pay attention to the way that things work. Ask questions to the owner if you have the opportunity to interact with them. See what you can do to participate and see how those things work. I learned a ton about business. I learned a ton about running a law firm, good and bad, things I wanted to do and didn't want to do from my first law office experience. I ended up, by the way, getting my lease not renewed. It was a 1-year lease. When the year was up, I was told my lease would not be renewed. Part of that was, I think, because the owner was a little competitive and did not want me in his space, which is fine. I remember distinctly, I think one of the first, maybe a week or two in, he had this wall of business books, and there were videotapes and there were recordings. It was amazing. It was like a treasure chest of resources. And one day I saw him and I was like, hey, do you mind if I read or listen to or whatever these resources that are here? They look amazing. And he said to me, I've been here, I don't know how long you've been there. I've been here 5, 6, 7 years. No one in this office has ever asked me to read those materials, ever. And I knew that's when I was a little bit different. I knew that's when I was going to have a great chance to succeed. But I think that was also the downfall of my staying in that office very long, which is fine. No big deal. So a year goes by, and it's a time to find another office. By that time, after a year, I started to get relatively busy. I think I'd actually made it to 6 figures that first year. And by the way, whenever anybody speaks in terms of how much revenue they're making, I think it's really important to define what that looks like. What I mean by that was, to make $100K in a year, you need to be making $8,333 a month. If you multiply that by 12, it's $100K. I think by that time, I was making that much money a month. I don't know if I'd made that much in the year, but it wasn't a full calendar year anyway. But I was sort of at that level. traffic tickets were getting busier, and I was getting busier anyway, and I was looking to sort of figure out how to take it to the next level. So, and this is when, and I, by the way, I've made this mistake I'm about to tell you about 100 times. I'll tell you a side story about this after I tell you the story. And this is gonna be a long, by the way. I feel like we're already at 10 minutes. This could be a long one. Hopefully you enjoy it. When it was time for me to look for a new space, I thought to myself, wow, I want to get someplace that's cool, that's modern, that's fun, that fits my personality, that I want, that I want to work in. So I started looking around, I just have never ever been drawn to like that old stuffy law firm feel. Like a lot of books, dark woods, dark carpets, dark feel, sort of like austere. I don't like that. I like modern. I like fresh, clean. I like bright. Okay, that's my style. So I started looking around, and I found this this new building. It was made as sort of like artist lofts. So it was individual offices, and then there was like a shared conference room, I think. So it wasn't exactly an executive space. It wasn't built or sold like that. But it was that's sort of like how it operated. Okay. So I found this space. It was pretty cheap because it was kind of not downtown. It was sort of like, it wasn't in a bad part of town, but it was sort of like in a weird part of town. So anyway, I got this space and moved in there. Hired my first assistant while I was there, which was amazing. And we both shared an office that was probably about, I don't know, maybe like 200, maybe not even, maybe 175 square feet. Okay, so a pretty small office together, the two of us, which was fine. It was great. That part wasn't the problem. What I didn't think about, and what's really, really important, I think, to consider is how your clients are going to hire you, where they're going to find you if they are coming to your office, and the logistics around that. This place had a parking garage in it, which was cool, but there was a lot of security involved. So to get someone from the parking garage like into your office took some. It wasn't even buzzing. It's like you had to go down and get them, and like people would get lost, and it was sort of not great, to be honest with you. So the other thing was, to the bottom, I think 3 floors were storage units. So like I said, the office space was cool, but looking back, it was definitely a lesson learned about logistics and about how the office will actually function and operate. How are people going to come in and see you? How are they going to experience you and your firm? That's really, really important to think about, and not something to be overlooked or poo-pooed. It's probably one of the top things I would consider. Location. Can people get to it easily? Can they find it easily? Does it function properly once they get there? Those kinds of things. Okay. So that ended. Boom. That year is up. I'm like, okay, we got to move someplace else. Again, I have this grand vision. By this time, I'm making a little bit more money. I think I'm hiring, or I'm about to hire my first associate attorney. The criminal defense practice is starting to gear up. Traffic tickets are doing well. And I'm thinking to myself, I want some more space. I want to get someplace cool again. I started looking further into downtown. And again, the prices were pretty high, but I was looking, and I found this spot that was cool. It was the top floor of a brewery. It was a bigger space, probably, I want to say it's probably like 500 square feet, maybe. But it was just one big open room. And I thought to myself, oh, I can build some stuff. We'll kind of like put some things up, and we'll wall it off, and we'll create different spaces, and it'll be great. And it was cool. The location was awesome. It was right across the street from Safeco Field, I don't know what the new place is called. The new football stadium. Actually, Safeco, I think, is a different name now. So anyway, it was right downtown. It was in a really cool spot. It's above a brewery. It's fun. And but it was one big room. And so I had my associate attorney in there. I had myself in there. I had my assistant in there. And that was when I first learned that open office space is not always such a great idea. And you guys are probably saying to yourself right now, well, no shit, Chris. That's an obvious thing. But for me, it wasn't obvious. I thought it was something we could be handled with headphones and just sort of like, just taking care of it, and it would be fine. But it wasn't. I like to have my own space. It was at that time that I started getting into video production. And so it was kind of weird for me to make these videos while everybody was trying to work. There wasn't a really good space for it. And so we had all these different things going on. And I think I actually was there for 2 years probably, because it was a cool space. It was relatively functional. It just didn't give me everything I wanted. And at that time, though, by the way, by the time that time came up, then I had joined forces with the person that bought into my business. So by that time, I had this Strider was his name, came in. We joined forces, and by that time we'd realized the space wasn't going to work. So we started looking for a new space. This time we went more traditional. We were looking like in an office building, and we ended up and honestly we were going for like I went the total opposite direction. Like, we're going to pay more money, we're going to have more space, and it's going to be great, amazing, and blah blah. And so we did that. We had our own we had our own like office space, and it was great. Except it was very expensive. Well, relatively, depending on where you're at. For me, it felt very expensive. It was like $5,500, $5,750 a month. Okay, and so we're talking about like what 10? That's like 50, 60, 65 grand a year for office space. And what was crazy was I didn't think about was there weren't a lot of people that were coming in to meet us all the time. We're still doing a lot of traffic tickets, even the criminal stuff. A lot of people do phone calls, even the PI stuff. People do phone calls, and so we weren't doing a tremendous amount of client meetings. We weren't seeing a lot of people in the office, but we still had this big rent due every month. And I ended up sort of holding myself in my office anyway. I was able to make videos and do that kind of stuff, but I was doing that, and but I really, really felt the sting of having to write that rent check every month for space that we didn't use, for things that I felt like we didn't need, and we, there's like a reception area, but nobody's ever sitting there because it was no, we didn't need it, and so it was like all these different factors going on, and it just really became a burden in a lot of ways. That was probably the one choice. If I could change anything about my entire sort of history as a law firm owner, I probably would not have signed that lease, because it was just a bad decision. It had nothing to do with the lessor, the people that rented us the space. The space was great. They built it out for us. They did a bunch of cool stuff, but it just was a bad choice. And so when we sort of broke up or whatever, when that business ended for me, and I started CMS Law Firm, this new version, then I sort of went all the way back to the beginning. This is our off, and that was 2015, 2016. I started looking for office space. I also had moved to Kirkland by that time, so I was driving like 30 minutes to and from work in traffic, and it was like, what the hell am I doing? So I started looking for a space that was local, and I wanted a space that was relatively cheap, that was really close to the office, that was flexible, which meant like was month to month, which is what this is, and it was great. So signed up to this one, but then I ended up needing to add another office. Then I was looking around, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm paying as much here for these two offices. This is like an executive space, a shared conference room. It's a really cool space. It's really great. It's close to downtown. A lot of really great things about it. It's easy to get to for everyone for the most part, but it's relatively expensive. So I think I'm paying about $2,000 a month right now, and I just figure if I'm going to be paying that much, which is I'm able to relatively easily, I want to have a nicer space. I want to have a space that's my own, dedicated for all of us. And in the meantime, I met a guy in this building. His name is Moses. He's a CPA, and he also was renting two offices here, which means we have like $4,000 a month to play with in budget, and we get to split that burden, which is nice. So I'm not responsible for coming up with all of it every month like I was at the other place, which makes it easier. And because you combine forces, and we actually, I think, are bringing in another guy to rent one office, then it really reduces the price, but you get to have your own spot. So that's what we're doing right now. We're about to sign a lease, hopefully. I just got a text. Yep, and he said, actually, this is awesome. What perfect timing. So I just sent him a text right before I hopped on here and started this. I said, just checking in. Bill emailed back. He said, broker just emailed to say he spoke to your existing landlord and all was good. So he is drafting a lease, ! Which means we're going to get this space, which is cool. And I wanted to, I guess, end this by giving you some tips about how to rent office space and how to get the right space for you. Because I think this last time, and I'll check in maybe in like a year and tell you how it is, but this last time I think I've actually started to do it right, and I attacked this process in the right way. Step one, by the way, if you're going to be renting any space of any kind, particularly if it's going to be an all-enclosed office and not just a one, if you're renting your own single office, I would encourage you to just take your time. Step one, look around. Don't be afraid to negotiate, and don't pay too much. Okay, so if you have a budget, try to find something well within your budget. Okay, there are great spaces with great offices at great prices. I would highly, all the way, by the way, this is a separate side note, I would highly discourage you from going to a place like Regus. I don't know much about WeWork. I would highly discourage you from going to a place like Regus. The reason is, the way that Regus works is they try to get you in for real cheap, but then they add on all of these different things so that your rent over time ends up becoming astronomically high. It's like a bait and switch in a way. They tell you all about it up front. It's not a bait and switch, but it just doesn't appear to be what it really is. Okay, so I would highly encourage you to find a different place where you can have your own space, even if it's within another office. I would highly encourage you to do that, but take your time. Okay, don't do it in a rush, because that, I think, is the biggest factor to everything. Is to not get in a hurry. You know, I see it all the time. Our real estate market in Seattle is hot. It's like on fire. And you find these buyers who get crazy and they start making these outrageous offers. They start going after these properties that they don't actually like just because they want to have a place. I want to encourage you to not do the same thing. So that was one of the, I think, the biggest step this time to my office space search. That was different. You know, it's what is it right now? It's October. I think Moses and I started talking about looking into new office space last October. So a year ago, we were like, man, maybe we should get a new office. We started looking around. We started looking at spots. When something opened up, we would go and look at it. And if it wasn't good, we just said no. If it was too expensive, we just said no. And what ended up happening was we found this awesome space, a big space, that was under market for rent for whatever reason. It's just owned by this dude who doesn't like to go crazy with the rent. And we found the right spot. The second thing that I would say is, really be careful or make sure that it's viable if you're going to buy more space and rent some of the offices out to reduce your rent. I think that can be a good idea, can enable you to get into a cooler spot. But I would really encourage you to try to maybe line those people up before you get the space, or give yourself a couple months so you can fill those up before you move in. So for us, for example, we are moving in January 1 is going to be when our rent starts. And although we don't need renters, that's great. October, November, December gives us like 2.5 months to actually find other people to come in and sublease from us if we really needed to do that. And we can start looking now, because those people are out there, they're everywhere. But you want to give your time to find the right person for that. Make sure you do background checks on them, credit checks, and the same thing that's done on you, so you can find good people and actually then sign them to a sublease. Whatever terms you want to get, sign them to a year if you can. That's the best way to do it. Okay, you may not even go after them if they leave, but at least they have committed to you on paper to showing up for a year. All right. The other thing I would do, like I said, and this goes back to sort of overall looking, is really have a great idea about what you want, and then go find that thing and don't settle. You know, for us, we were looking for a space that had a nice, welcoming area, but we didn't need a reception desk. We don't need a reception area, but we wanted a spot where people could come in and be greeted at the beginning. We also needed private offices. You know, he's a CPA. You know, obviously I'm doing my thing all the time, and we need a conference room to meet with clients. I meet with clients all the time. He's meeting with clients all the time, often. So we have that space. Then we also wanted to have like a bullpen area where we could set associate attorneys, paralegals, you know, his CPA associates, anybody that we needed an open area for them to work in, because it's cheaper, you can fit more people in there, and it's functional for them from that perspective. And we found space, and we got it. So that is my sort of a rental journey. I was going to talk about something else and come back to it, but I forgot what it was. Sorry, maybe it'll come back to me later. But in any event, hopefully this helps if you're looking for office space. You know, if you have any questions, always let me know. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, unconventionalnewsletter.com, go check that out. And you know, that's it. If you like this video, like it. You know, if you're listening to this podcast, subscribe. Leave a review. I really appreciate that kind of stuff. It helps other people find this. If you know somebody that should hear this, email them and tell them. Okay, you other law firm owners, I just did a podcast yesterday about scarcity. We need to be sharing this stuff. Okay, there's plenty of money and clients and work out there for all of us. We don't need to struggle. We don't need to starve. We don't need to be it's not that hard to do. And when somebody's out there sharing information like this, like I am, I think we all deserve to let everybody hear it because it will help them. Okay? That's it. Have a great day. Have a great everything. And if you're looking for office space, good luck. The right stuff is out there. You just got to go find it. All right? See ya.